right, it is party time. Well, everyone, we have made it. We have reached our fourth and final installment of our Sales and Marketing Game Changers web series. We've been showing up every week to share the lessons from our own collective experiences to give you the strategies, tools, and tactics you need to take your business's growth to the next level in 2020 and beyond. Today is all about leading your team in the new normal. This is a big topic, one that is certainly open to a range of perspectives, and I can't think of a more appropriate subject to end our series with. If you're just joining us for the first time or you need a quick refresher, in week one, we discussed marketing that's seen, heard, and felt, covering misconceptions around marketing, what effective marketing looks like today, and actions that you can take right now to make your sales and marketing more impactful. Then in week two, we talked about leveraging data to stop selling naked. We dove more to the sales side of things, covering the importance of listening, customer centricity, and tracking outcomes. Then last week, we discussed reducing risk to make sales easier. We shared our thoughts on roadblocks to sales and marketing and some very pointed tactics to reducing those barricades. Now, this week, we're here to discuss leadership. Strong leadership is more important than ever as we navigate uncharted waters. Whether you refer to it as wartime leadership or leading through uncertainty, the reality is right now we need to lead through change. So how do you do that? Well, fortunately, I'm joined by 5 awesome sales and marketing leaders this week to provide some perspectives on this topic. I'll be your host this week. My name's Chris Luecke. I'm an account manager by day at Rockwell Automation. And by night, I am the host of Manufacturing Happy Hour, the industrial podcast where we focus on the biggest trends in manufacturing and technologies and dissect those in a simplified fashion. And in the spirit of Manufacturing Happy Hour for our intros this week, I'd like to put a little twist on it. So Ben, we're going to start with you. Let's say we're kicking it over a beer at the bar. How do you describe what you do in simplest terms as if we're grabbing a drink?
We'll do the 1-minute introduction. Thanks for introducing me, Chris. What we do is, my company is Your Brand Marketing. My name is Ben Baker. And what we do is we do 2 things. We do them extremely well, but they all come down to telling your story. We have a part of our company is called Podcast Host for Hire, where we create custom podcasts for our clients. And the other part of it is teaching leaders how to lead more effectively. It's about building better leadership teams and getting them to understand how to influence people, how to gain trust, and how to communicate effectively. So people want to be engaged and people want to move forward with you.
Excellent. Let's, Mark Roberts, let's go next. Let's say we're kicking it over a scotch. How do you introduce yourself?
Well, hi, I'm Mark Roberts. I've been in sales and marketing for 36 years. So I don't claim to know it all, but I've seen quite a bit. My company is OTB Solutions, and that stands for Out of the Box Solutions. And what I'm known for is fixing sales problems. And that's usually if we're sitting at a bar, I ask you to get out your cell phone and Google the term fix sales problems, because I'm #1 in the world.
Always good to be #1 on that list. Let's keep moving through. Ray, let's say we're kicking it over a bourbon. How do you introduce yourself and describe what you do?
I'm assuming you're buying. And if that's the case, I'm going to say, hey, thanks for that drink. I'm Ray Ziganto. I'm the manufacturing unicorn. I have a company called Lenare International, and I really help do 3 things. I help manufacturing companies with growth. That's growth strategies and tactics, whether that's looking at diversifying the industries you're already in, going after new ones, or doing some things internationally. I help with change management because of companies like Rockwell Automation that come in and bring all this awesome technology that companies can take advantage of. I help them translate that onto their factory floors so as it impacts their workers, they really get the most out of that technology. And the third area I help companies with is just an overall performance management. Once you've got data, you better bring some transparency, and you better drive some accountability, and that's how you get some results. So that's my day job. When I'm not doing that, my passion project is the Manufacturing OutLoud, MFG OutLoud podcast with my good friend and mentor, Allison Deford. And we rock it every week talking about having courageous conversations for manufacturers to help them grow. So I'm about ready for another bourbon. You got more money?
You know, I think we might need to do a round 2. We're going to be here for an hour talking leadership this week, so I think it is a couple rounds long. And
All right.
funny that you bring up Allison, because she's next. So, Allison, let's say we're hanging out on the back patio of the bar and we're sipping on Tito's and soda, and someone comes up and asks, hey, what do you do? And, how do you describe that?
Well, first of all, yeah, I'm with Ray. I hope you're buying, so thanks.
I'm running up a tab this week, that's for sure.
No, I'm Allison Deford, the resident trailblazer and founder at Felt Marketing. We're the only marketing retrofit company for manufacturers. And in our world, manufacturers are the hero of our story. We love them, we love to support them, and we do that by helping them retrofit their traditional marketing system, because most of our customers are over 50 years old, and we help them add digital components and really modernize so that they can get to the heart of their ideal customer. The best way to do that is through emotional engagement. So you don't just want to be seen and heard, you want to be felt.
Love that. And then last on our list, let's say we're popping open that bottle of wine and you're sharing your story with the table. So Mark Mitchell, how do you describe who you are and what you do when we're sipping on some wine?
Great. Well, I'm Mark Mitchell of Wizard Strategy. I'm a consultant to the building materials industry and author of the book Building Material Channel Marketing, which has sort of become the industry Bible, mainly because there is no other book that does it. So you get to be the leader when you don't have any competition in terms of at least my book. And what I focus on is I find that, so I've got a building material company and their business is either not growing fast enough, sales have plateaued, they have a new product that has failed to gain traction, maybe they have a new competitor and they're actually seeing sales decline. If things are going, if they're happy with their results, they don't come to me. They come to me when there's a challenge. And the challenge almost always is a new strategy for them designed around, are you calling on the right person? Because many times who they think is the right person, they think it's the builder, but it really should be the contractor. Or they think it's the architect, maybe in their case, it should be the owner. And then they always have the wrong message. Always, whether it's like, as Ben brought up their story, like I'm amazed how when I sit in on sales calls or I go along on sales calls, or I actually try to sell the product to a customer, how the message that they're trotting out is so much about them and their product and not about the customer. So they don't really understand the customer. And if we look at what's happened in the building materials industry is very slow and stubborn and resistant to change. Their customers are not. Their customers are changing like crazy, right? And so they need to understand how the customer they have today is very different than the one and 2 and 3 years ago, their needs, what they're interested in. And then they frequently use old school marketing efforts like trade shows and brochures, or, they're not comfortable and up to date with the world of digital marketing, social media, SEO content, all that stuff, which is so much more cost effective than something like spending $400,000 trade show exhibit for 2.5 days. So that's what I do.
Awesome, Mark. Well, for those of you listening, as you can tell, we have a range of experience on this call. It's great to be with you guys for the 4th week in a row. It's a little sad that it's ending like this, but hopefully not forever. But before we get too nostalgic, let's dive into the conversation. So first question, we're going to set some baseline. And Ben, I'm going to have you lead us off on this one. So
Sure.
Question number 1, what did leadership mean to you before the pandemic? How has leadership changed with the onset of COVID-19, or has it changed?
Well, leadership has changed pre-COVID to COVID in the fact that there's a bunch of leaders out there, going back to a comment that we had a long time ago about selling naked, they're actually leading naked. You had a lot of people out there that thought they were leaders that were actually managers, and actually still are. The challenge is that these people don't have the skills to lead properly. They don't have the skills to lead remote teams. They don't have the the skills they need to be able to communicate effectively, to influence, to give people the trust that they need to be able to do their jobs effectively. There's been too much micromanaging, and there's not enough people sitting there going, okay, this is where we were, this is where we are. What do you as a team need to be successful? Let me listen to you to find out what your challenges are. And let me as a leader be out there going, okay, I need to be the advocate for this team. Let me be the person who can go out there and get them what the team needs to be successful. And to also let the team know, listen, this is what the objectives of the company are. This is where we're going. This is what we're trying to achieve. These are our challenges as an organization. And this is what we need from this team in order for everybody to meet their objectives. So it's a matter of being able to be that communicator. And that's what the biggest skill gap is for leadership right now, is that we have a bunch of people out there that think that they manage people, but you really only manage process and you lead people. Because leadership is a mindset, it's not a job title.
Excellent answer. I love that early differentiation between leadership and management. A very important thing to throw out. As we keep rolling through this, Allison, what are your thoughts?
I feel like for me, if you were the characteristics of a leader before and now are the same, but I think the thing that is different now is I think being resilient is critical. Being able to adapt quickly and remain focused at the same time. A lot of people in manufacturing, for example, it's like building materials, it's resistant to change in many cases. And a lot of people got caught with their digital pants down, playing off of Mark's selling naked. People were marketing naked. And I think if you're not a creative leader, which you need to be now, you're ignoring this fact, for example, and you're waiting for normal to come back. And it's never going to. So I think that's, you've definitely got to be creative. And I think one of the biggest things that I've seen is I think you need to be vulnerable. And that may surprise some people listening or watching, but Brene Brown, who is, an author and person that I dearly love, she has the best quote. It's vulnerability is the birthplace of innovation, creativity, and change. And I think the leaders that I admire and respect the most aren't afraid to admit, I don't understand or I don't know, but together we'll figure it out.
Love that. Great theme with vulnerability, bringing that in. As we keep going, next, Mark Roberts, what are your thoughts on this question?
Yeah, I'd like to continue on with what Ben was sharing. When business was good, I heard a lot of people saying, I know we have a bunch of micromanagers and we need to make them leaders, but business is busy right now. We don't have the time. It kind of reminds me of digital marketing. It kind of reminds me of e-commerce even. People wanted to invest in all these things, but hey, business was good, but then the tide went out. So from now on and forever, Ben will be known as the leading naked guy. But what we're seeing is you got to move from being a manager to being a leader today. And I think Ben did a great job of explaining that, but I'd like to add one more thing, which is coaching. We really need to develop, it's a skill. Don't just assume because somebody has a manager or a leadership role that they understand the principles of coaching and how to coach. People are hungry for coaching. There was a stat, I want to say it was 60% of salespeople said that they would leave their organization if their manager was a poor coach. Whoa. So again, I think what we've seen is people who've adapted have become really good at communicating. They've become really good at coaching. And maybe to echo a little bit of what Allison said, they're being a little more vulnerable and transparent.
Awesome. Let's move to Mark Mitchell next on this one.
Well, the building materials industry is, I look at, let's say, cameras and phones and, companies like Yamaha and so forth, they have to be like just constantly developing new products, constantly like cannibalizing their current sales, eliminating their last year's model. In the building materials industry, it tends to be about, let's manage the status quo. Okay, we have a big expensive factory and our main thing is capacity utilization. Let's keep selling the same stuff like Henry Ford, in the same color or whatever. That's how we optimize our income, manage expenses better and so forth. And so I look and say they're maybe 95% manage the status quo and 5% let's look at something new. And they're extremely risk averse. Right? That no one gets rewarded for trying something that doesn't work. So they keep doing the same thing. They may talk or act like they're doing something innovative, but they don't. So I think what we've hit right now, I just read an article yesterday about how the coronavirus has forced us to change faster. And I thought it would take 3 to 5 years for building material companies to embrace e-commerce, to embrace virtual selling. They're now forced to deal with it right now. So the leader of today needs to move from 5% innovation to maybe 20. Okay, I mean they're not going to go all in, but they need to up their game, and that's the biggest change I see in leadership.
Love that, sticking with the theme of being open to change in a lot of ways that we're hearing. And then we got one more. Ray, do you want to put a bow on this one for us?
I love the comments and agree with what everybody has said so far. I think they're really key thing with leadership is it's the qualities that make you a good leader before versus now are kind of the same, and everybody alluded to their kind of their own favorite mixture that's in there. I think there's an interesting dynamic out there. There's a need for managers in organizations. But I've argued for a while, and anybody that's spent time on a manufacturing floor will recognize that if you're managing just to optimize your silo, you're actually sub-optimizing the organization, because where the slippage occurs is in the handoffs to that next department. And if you read anything by Andy Grove from Intel or whatever, managers really need to be the ones breaking the ties in between other departments, so those handoffs happen more smoothly. Leaders are the ones that, as Allison said, we need that level of vulnerability. We need a level of consistency. My favorite view on willingness to embrace change and those types of things falls into a category called adaptive capacity. And that's not something that you just break out during a crisis. That's something that even when times are relatively stable, those are the people that are out looking over the horizon. Yeah, business might be good and things are humming along, but they're looking, hey, how can we, what are current best practices and how could I apply those to do even better? And that doesn't mean at the expense of your company culture or your relationship with your people or how you support and serve your clients. So I think there are a lot of foundational rocks that are part of leadership, and there are some nuanced aspects of it that really get highlighted in times of crisis.
Love that. Great answers all around. Really impressed with not only focusing on, hey, some things of leadership, have remained the same, but that adaptability to change, being vulnerable, consistent theme, as well as the fact that everyone seemed to answer with people not having their clothes on or leading naked, selling naked, whatever it may be. So evidently our industry needs to throw a few more garments on, but we won't dwell on that for now. We're going to dive into the next question, which is what's one characteristic, one word that a leader must embody to be successful in the new normal, and why? And this time, Allison, I'd love it if you'd lead us off on this one.
Oh, I'd love to. Thank you. Again, this answer might surprise people listening, and maybe even some of you guys. I think being empathetic. It's been thrown around a lot lately, but I've been a fan of it and in tune with it for many years. And a lot of people confuse what empathy actually is. And it's the ability to understand and feel what others are feeling. And so I think while a lot of leaders may say or are saying now, oh yeah, we're empathetic, we're an empathetic company, we feel you. I think demonstrating it is a whole nother thing. So it can be, if it's just lip service, don't bother. But if you're more empathetic, empathy leads to creativity and resilience, which I had mentioned a moment ago. And it has a trickle-down effect. So it affects your culture, which affects your employees, which affects your customers. So if you can see if a company or leader is empathetic, because it starts at the top and rolls downhill. And I think it's more important now than ever. And I think it requires 4 things, because I thought about this. It requires awareness. You have to actually see what's going on around you and give a shit. Listening more than you talk. You got to ask the right questions and let people know that you hear them, you see them. It takes creativity, and then it takes action. And, I think I say this all the time, and you guys are probably tired of hearing it, but connecting with people on that deeper, more emotional level, that's how they make decisions anyway. So, by being empathetic, you go straight there to the heart and connect on that more meaningful level. So don't just say we understand you, show it.
Yeah, I think that's a great differentiator there, because empathy does kind of have that buzzwordy aspect to it. Now you're hearing it a lot, but showing it in action versus just saying it, huge point. Great way to start. Our next word is going to come from Mark Roberts. What do you got for us?
I would say trust. I don't know if you're familiar with the book Speed of Trust by Covey, but I actually turned that into a course at one point. Most businesses don't even realize they have a trust tax. Prior to COVID, the average was about 65% of most teams weren't engaged. They were just doing enough just to get by. So just imagine what COVID has done as some teams raced to downsize to help their bottom lines. So I would say trust. If you focus on it, you can really improve your overall results. And I think it falls right in line with Allison shared, which is, creativity, being a strategic problem solver. All those things don't happen if you live in an environment of fear.
Great one. Trust is huge. Glad you brought it up early. And I should say, since depending on the order we're going in, if you're at the caboose on this one and you need to bust out the dictionary in case someone steals yours, I'm going to go in reverse order here. Mark Mitchell, you're going to be the caboose. Ben, you're going to be right before Mark. And then Ray, you're next. So Ben and Mark, if you need to look up another word because someone stole yours, just wanted to prepare everyone. So Ray, you're up next.
Sure, go with the long-winded guy.
That's it. Where's my thesaurus when I need it?
You got all kinds of time, guys. I agree. What I'm struggling with, I vigorously agree with what Mark and Allison have shared. This is a tough one for one word, because in my mind, what I struggle with, maybe this is just the operations guy in me, is, yes, you absolutely have to have that connection with your workforce that's beyond what the org chart says, or any of those types of things. And there has to be, the empathy and the trust and those things going back and forth. There also has to be, on the part of the leader, there has to be a fundamental understanding of, hey, there's an outcome, or there's a goal we are aiming for, that the current change in the environment hasn't created a deer in the headlights moment, because the most empathetic or trustworthy leader in the world that is choosing to go hide under a rock at this moment isn't doing his team or the shareholders or the customers, any good right now. So there has to be kind of a, and maybe this is a training thing as well, but The original thing that jumped into mind was, again, my favorite word, the adaptive capacity thing. You've got to be able to cope with the environment. And there's plenty of examples around there in building products. You know, I'm in Chicago, Willis Tower, at one point, one of the tallest buildings, you know, in the world. That building is designed to flex 3 feet in any direction off of center line. Why? Because there was an expectation that the environment was going to change of sufficient magnitude, and it must still stand and keep the people safe. So I think there's an element of, you know, within leadership, implied or otherwise, that you have an ability to adapt to your environment and keep your organization safe and moving in the right direction. So
are you saying adaptive is your final answer?
yes, adaptive
Okay.
capacity. Yeah, sorry.
I dig it. No, we'll give you a little bonus word there.
Lock
We'll
in
give you a
that
bonus.
word.
That's right. Ben and Mark, that enough time for you?
Yeah, Ben, what are your thoughts? You're up next. What's your one word for leadership?
You know, amazingly enough, nobody took it. It's humility.
Good one.
Our book that's coming out in about a week and a half right now, week and a half, is called Leading Beyond a Crisis, a conversation about what's next. And one of the big things we talk about is humility, is that as a leader, if you're the smartest person in the room, you have 2 choices. You either got to go find a better room, or you got to find smarter people to fill it. And anybody who thinks as a leader that they know everything today is kidding themselves. We are in a situation come February, March, call the date, whatever you want. When we sent everybody home, everybody was scrambling. Everybody was shaking their head. Nobody had a real plan. We all had guesses. We all had, you know, there might have been, strategic plans that were saying in crisis mode, what do you do? But everything needed to be adapted. And everybody was sitting there going, well, that didn't work. What do we do now? And I heard that time and time and time again. And from the same people who tried things and this didn't work, and tried this and that didn't work, and tried this and that didn't work. And that's okay. We need as leaders to realize that we're not perfect human beings, and we're not all seeing, and we're not all knowing. And we need to look at the people that we lead and get their wisdom. We need to sit there and say, we hired these people for a reason. We brought them on board for a reason. They all have skill sets. They all have knowledge. They all have experience that they're coming to the table with. It's not a horrible thing to sit there and say, what do you think? And then shut up and let them talk. You know, and we need to be able to aggregate that, you know, that joint wisdom to be able to sit there and say, okay, let's take these 10, 15, 20, 100,000 people in a room and find out what do they think. And, you know, you may not agree with some of them. You may think that other people are out to lunch. You may think that there's one brilliant thought, but it's aggregating all those thoughts together and being able to sit there and say, okay, I now have a better idea of what other people are thinking, what other people think are strategic. Now I've got to take my own, you know, experience and be able to say, this is what we're going to do moving forward. You know, but if we don't listen to people, if we're not, you know, if we don't have a sense of humility, if we don't have a sense of humanity, and think that we can just dictate and say, you know what, we're going this way, and that's because, and not have to explain why, that's when we get disengagement. That's when we get people who don't trust us. That's when we get people that are not going to follow us. And we're not true leaders because all we're doing is trying to manage a situation from our best guess situation, instead of leading a team and sitting there going, you know what, guys, let's work together and figure this out together.
Still seeing that parallel or that difference between management and leadership there. Love that that's getting emphasized. Humility is a great one. And, you know, I've heard it from a lot of the leaders that I've been having on the Manufacturing Happy Hour podcast lately, namely in terms of what you were saying, that ability to listen and not necessarily have all the answers, but take the feedback from the team and figure out where to go from there and why. All right, Mark Mitchell, you have the last word of the crew. What do you got?
Take off your...
Oh, we lost you on mute.
Just put it on mute. Sorry, I'm back. I've taken the total opposite point of view of many of the things that I've heard here, and that the single word is confidence. That I see back in when the coronavirus back in March, we first started to realize how big it could be, locking down, things like that. I think this is my 4th recession I've been through, and each one is different. but people, I think in early March, they went, oh my gosh, this plus this equals a recession. So we have to start laying off people, cutting back, things are going to get horrible, all that stuff. It was all about assuming the worst. And the 2009 recession really did affect the construction industry. But this one, I was amazed at. In April, I talked to people and they said March was better than expected. Then they had a slow April and May, and now most of them are ahead of their sales plans. Ahead of, you went to them last November and said, what do you plan to do in 2021? I'm hearing 15, 20, a deck company I talked to the other day is 38% of sales plan. I said, Mark, we want to work with you, but the last thing we need is more business right now. Okay. And so I saw, I'm going to say, I'm going to just pick a number and say 50% of people just kind of went, this is going to be terrible. We need to hunker down. Right. And now those companies are playing catch up. Okay. Because they're seeing like they're getting more orders than they anywhere expected. And so I think whatever happens in a recession, you need to pivot to where the opportunity is. Like if people stop buying new houses, they fix up their old ones. If they, and if they stop building hotels, they remodel the old ones, right? So you may be very focused on new construction. You may need to shift to remodeling or home improvement. And so I just see people, they just kind of, it's particularly companies that are, the CEO used to be the CFO, or they're owned by an investment company that wants to flip them in a couple of years. They're only driven by, looking at spreadsheets. They really don't care about the customer. They care about, how are we doing dollars and cents? And so I think that word confidence says, I'm confident that we will come through this well. I find most companies can actually grow because their competitors have hunkered down and they can get business from them. I've got several examples of that where companies are literally taking business from their competition because they're better meeting, they've adapted quicker and faster. But the leader had confidence, we can do this. This is it's going to make the difference, where I see a lot of people are very risk averse and don't have confidence. It's almost like that thing I think I mentioned in an earlier one. It's kind of like control your own destiny or someone else will. So they're perfectly willing to let the marketplace determine, oh, the marketplace can be down, so I guess we'll be down, which I think is stupid thinking. So the word is confidence.
Well, I'm glad you added that to the mix, because I have to say, I feel like we have a perfect cornucopia of leadership qualities. Just a quick recap. We've got empathy, trust, being adaptive, humility, and confidence. And I'll add one to the mix as well. And I don't know if it's a real word. I couldn't look it up, but I would say titleless. One of my biggest things around leadership is you don't need a title to lead. Anyone can step up in moments like these. And I think it goes back to the humility comment as well, when you can look at a team and say, hey, who is stepping up to the plate right now? So that's just my call to action to anyone out there that might not have the title, but certainly has the capacity to pull it off. We are just halfway mark. And one thing I love to do is take these words, take these lessons, and put them in the context of stories so that our audience can really take away what this looks like in action. So for the next question, I'd love folks to share a story about a leader you've interacted with over the past 6 months that illustrates, what leadership looks like. And this time, Ray, I'm going to have you lead us off.
Fair enough. This was a great topic, because it really did give me an opportunity to reflect back and look at examples of who's been doing it right, consistently, confidently, with humility, and those things. And there's a guy I've known in the Chicago area. Can we name names?
Go for it. Yeah,
All
they're
right.
cool with it.
All right. Well, I want to talk about a guy that I really admire. In fact, I admire his family and what they've done with their business. Aaron Weigel is third generation. The Weigel family owns a business in the Chicago area called Weigel Toolworks. And we were friendly competitors that really didn't know each other when I was running another business, nearby. And we would, through intermediaries, throw barbs at each other till we actually started talking to one another. And I got to know and not only like, but respect what Aaron and his family are doing with their company. In particular, just going back, if we look over the last 6 months or the last several years, they're a business that has consistently lived their culture, and they've lived it by it wasn't a sign on the wall. It was through how they acted. Aaron, as a leader, in the organization, didn't just show up one day and all of a sudden, meet the new vice president, the son of the owner. He started as a CNC operator, like his brother did, like his sister did, and they're all, part of the business, but they grew up understanding where and how the money was made, who the customers were, and I've always admired Aaron's ability to constantly look out in front of the business and understand what are the trends that are influencing the customer base that I'm serving. How do I need to adapt to be where the puck is going to be, type of a thing. So there has always been a willingness to invest in technology. I just found out recently, 10 years ago, these guys were having custom-made stamping presses built because they needed them to do something that you couldn't get off the shelf, but because of that, it created a competitive advantage for them. Who thinks of that? So they're doing those types of things, diversifying their customer base, forming alliances and collaboration with other organizations. Long story short, what it did was put them in a remarkable position when COVID did occur, that the pivot that they had to make was very small. And in fact, he is still on pace to have, I know, a very strong year and continuing to invest in the business. So just from a leadership standpoint, someone that really does keep an eye on all the levers, the people, the customers, the technology, the environment, and how do you optimize that equation at all times. And it's just, I admire what he does, and I think that's best in class.
Well, as a hockey fan, that looking for where the puck is going, seeing what's happening in the market, looking at the trends and adapting accordingly is huge.
Yeah.
Well, Mark Mitchell, I had you do cleanup duty last time. So you're up next. What do you got for us on a story that you've seen recently?
Well, I'm always looking for these qualities in a leader. And so I recently had the pleasure, and I really enjoy working with leaders like this because we can actually get stuff done. So the first thing is the leader is connected personally to customers. They're not reading research reports. They're not being told by the VP of sales. They actually have relationships with not only their biggest customers, but literally he'd go to a trade show, stand in the booth, the CEO, looking to talk to an average schmo customer, right? They didn't have to be big, they didn't have to be important, they didn't have to actually buy the product from them, but he was looking for hi, I'm CEO of, this company, and I'd really like to know about what's going on with your business. What are your issues? What do you think of our products? How could we do better? Who's doing the best job, whatever. And so he's getting firsthand knowledge that then he can use to validate what he's being told. It's not that he's trying to know more than the VP of sales, but he's just kind of trying to check the bullshit. Am I hearing the same thing? Are you directionally going the same way? The other thing is they have a great team of people, and they're thinkers rather than doers. Like I see marketing people go, well, I know Photoshop. I go, that's too bad. Don't tell anybody, okay? If you're the marketing director and you're photoshopping photos for the company, that you should have an outside resource that is doing that for you, who will do it better. And, and so they are surround themselves with thinkers they're not afraid to have disagreements with. And the other thing they're very good at is many large companies, particularly, all companies have a generation of people at 60 years old, the senior person who's more interested in, they got 5 more years and I'm out of here, than they are in changing anything. And so they're good at recognizing, I should give this guy a nice package and move on. And the larger the company is you get, there's a term empty suits. I learned from this guy the term peacocks, okay? So I have seniority. I have a big title. I show up at a meeting and I listen in just enough to throw a monkey wrench into it that will stop it, okay, or delay it, or, you know, like there's a fear of like, if this goes through, that guy will get credit and I won't. So, you know, the best thing is to, you know, and so they're very good at spotting those people and getting them out of there. So it sends a signal to the whole team. I have very high expectations of you, but I don't want to put things in your way for enable you to do that. And the final thing they do is they are not, I'll literally say he encouraged failure. Like he would ask his, you know, sales and marketing people, what did you learn this week? You know, what, you know, how did you fail and learn? Not just tell me, you know, like, oh, we're number one on Facebook or whatever whatever the story is, right? No, you know, did you have the guts to try something that didn't work out? And what was that? Because you may have 4 of those, and then the 5th one's going to be an, oh my God, change to your business. But if you're afraid of the 4, you're never going to find the 5th. So that's what I love about this guy.
Good, full, diverse answer. I love the tie-in to failure, being comfortable with failure. In fact, to use one of the words from earlier, being humble enough to learn from failure, and then just tying it back that, you know, where you started with the leader hanging out in the trade show booth, hearing from not only the big customers, but the little ones, the importance of listening and customer centricity in this process. So,
yes.
And Ben, I just gave a shout out to your word humility. So you're the next one that gets to share a story. Think you're on mute.
Start over, Ben.
As I said, I was wanting to take this from a different angle. Technology is a wonderful thing. Come March, there was a bunch of us sitting online on different Zoom chats playing, trade show bingo, where all of us are professional speakers, and we're all sitting there looking and going, okay, how many of us are going to lose opportunities over the next few months? Within 12 hours, we're all looking, going, okay, I hope we have some actual opportunities coming up in the next 9 months. To 12 hours later, sitting going as, God, I hope that everything that we have coming up in the next 9 months gets canceled. And sure enough, within 72 hours, 9 to 12 months of my worldwide speaking engagements and everybody I know around me were gone. And there is a guy out in Toronto that is a world-class, speaker. He's in the Hall of Fame, that has a phenomenal mastermind. It only speaks to speakers and how to be better. And what he did is he basically took the mastermind and turned it into a session of saying, okay, where do we go from here? And he really took the bull by the horns and spent far more time listening to people who sit there going, okay, where do we go? These are people whose entire incomes, their entire livelihood is probably gone for the next 24 months. I don't expect to be on a live stage until 2022. And I don't think pretty much anybody who speaks on a decent sized stage doesn't feel that they're going to be on a stage until 2022. So the question is, what do we do? And it really came down to building a community that got together and said, all right, where do we go from here? How do we level up our virtual speaking? How do we diversify our skill set? How do we move into different types of things that we can do? And how do we pivot in order to build a new lifestyle for ourselves when we know that our main lifestyle, things that pay us extremely well, are gone and may not come back? So the question is, how did everybody get to reinvent themselves? And, this guy stood up and wasn't thinking about himself. And this is a guy that makes a lot of money, far more money than I ever will on stage. And it wasn't thinking about himself. He said, okay, I've got my 5 kids, but I've got my house and my wife works and we're going to do okay. And we may have to, cut back a little bit, but we're going to be fine. And his thought was, how do I take care of the people around me? How do I make the community better? How do I enable people to work together to be able to be successful, both in the short term and the long term? And to me, that's the definition of leadership. The definition of leadership is sitting there going, how do I make everybody around me more successful? Not just focused in on yourself, because when you focus in on others, when you wake up every morning, you say, how do I make the people around me better? How do I give the people around me the opportunity to succeed? You will succeed. One way or another, you will succeed. You know, you don't have to worry about that next promotion. You don't have to worry about that title bump. You don't have to worry about that pay raise. It will come. And there's too few people out there that think that way. They're always angling for that next promotion, that next title bump, that next promotion. But if you're focused in on the people around you, if you take care of the people around you, if you make them better, people will recognize that and great things will come for you. So that's my story of leadership.
You know, it brought up another word that we didn't bring up before, but I think, you know, we'll put it into the cornucopia of leadership qualities. Selflessness was the thing that was sticking out during that conversation, putting others first. All right, great stories so far. Got a couple more. So, Mark Roberts, do you have a tale for us?
Yeah, right when COVID hit, I was in conversations with someone that's a leader of a company. She owns a manufacturing company, and as COVID progressed, she took a hard look at, and I refer to it as doing like an MRI on your business. She looked at every one of the main business drivers and did an analysis very quickly. You know, how are we doing? And what's the current state? What do we need to do? And as you can tell, I'm a Covey fan. And, one of the things Covey talks about is, what are the big rocks? What's the gravel and what's the sand, right? And she quickly identified the big rocks for every one of the drivers, and then trusted her leaders in each one of those business segments to come up with a plan. If you needed her help, she was there for you. If you needed to hire somebody because you didn't have the skills, for example, their sales leader reached out to me and we assessed all their people. We talked to all their customers. I mean, she doubled down on finding information. Then she created a plan with everybody's input. And now we just monitor the plan. When COVID hit, their business dropped about, I think it was 42%. They're on pace now to have the best September in the history of their business. So it was just fun to watch because it takes a lot of courage to do what she did. And I have a lot of respect for her.
Mark, I love how you always put the numbers to it. Obviously, if people are listening, this is a podcast, or they probably didn't see it, but I was doing a little fist pump there because I was pretty excited about that metric when you drop to 42, by 42%, and then on track to have the best September, just 6 months after the fact. That's huge. Excellent example. Allison, take us home on this one. What's a story that you've heard recently?
Well, I'm actually living it. And because my answer is the 5 of you. And the reason that I say that is I feel like each of you embodies several characteristics that I think are terribly important right now. And you have all shown up. First of all, you've shown up and you've shown up and you've shown up to matter to the people who will care. And you're also empathetic. You are transparent. You are creative, resilient, and vulnerable. And you all go the extra mile. And so, I, like Ben, started doing podcasts with Claire and then wrote a book during a pandemic. That's leadership, right? Mark Roberts created new webinars, numerous, like he's a content machine. Webinars, talks, videos for his audience to really support them. Same with Chris, has his extra podcast. I think he has 2 more, and then volunteered to tag along with my crazy idea to do this so that we could all come together and bring information and inspiration to all the people in all of our tribes. And, Ray, Mark, both of them are pulling out the stops and trying all kinds of new things and are always teaching me something new. And so my answer, I don't know, it may be cheesy, but I thought about all the leaders that I know and all the stories that I've heard. And all of a sudden, you guys popped into my head. And so I have to say, with humility and gratitude, for me, you five have been a tremendous support and tremendous leaders through the last 6 months.
No, thank you.
Oh,
Yeah, thank you. I love how
Thank you,
we're throwing a little tearjerker element to all of it,
that's so
getting us to
sweet.
tear up here at the end of it.
it's the
So,
bourbon. I have bourbon in my eye.
well, way to bring it back the manufacturing happy hour theme there, Ray. So we're at the 10-minute mark, so we're closing in on the end. But with any of these, first, for everyone that's been listening throughout, whether you just showed up today or whether you've been listening to the whole series, thank you to all of you out there that have been listening, and hopefully we've helped you in some way, shape, or form. And to give you some final pieces of action, I always like ending on some action content. So last question is, regardless of a person's title, what's one thing anyone can do to step up and be a leader in the new normal? And Mark Mitchell, I'm going to have you lead us off on this one.
Well, I see leadership where we are today is about change. And you find that everyone in an organization is for change as long as it doesn't affect them. Okay. As long as like their job doesn't change or they have to do something different, so you have to expect resistance to if you're going to be a leader. It's not going to, you can have this great idea and everybody's going to, give you awards and clap and, high five you. You're going to have a number of people that are overtly going to, object, and you're going to have, a lot of, what's the psychological term where they smile at your face, but they, they're really behind your back, undoing what you're doing, and there can be a lot of that in corporate America. So I've got two stories. One is salespeople. I see the best salespeople today are not asking permission to do something. They'll ask forgiveness if they get busted. Okay. So I've got one salesman who recognized how the industry is moving toward building buildings and houses and factories. And he sees that as it's a small business today, but it's rapidly growing. Everything makes sense that it's going to rapidly grow. So he, is making a point of being a thought leader in offsite housing, factory building. And he didn't ask his boss. He didn't ask permission. He started his own podcast. He writes really good content. He goes ahead and somehow gets permission to go. If they had an event, he would be there. Now he's doing it to their, always part of their virtual events. He's doing that in addition to what he's supposed to be doing. He's not supposed to be doing this. I mean, they didn't say no, but they didn't say this is a target, right? And so far, when they kind of discovered like what's happening and they started to see some business, they got, where? This is amazing, great, but he didn't wait for someone to assign him, this is what you go do. He saw it and dove in. The other thing is, this is to marketing people. In the building materials industry, too often the marketing department is viewed as people that produce pretty pictures. Okay, they are doers, not thinkers. They don't add value. You don't go to them with a problem like, how do I increase my architectural sales? I love marketing's thoughts on this. They go, oh, I need a new brochure, a new PowerPoint, a new whatever I need. And they just give them tasks to do. And so I, have coached a number of frustrated marketing people. And I say to them, okay, that's where you are today. Now, every time they give you a task, you go think of a better way to do it. And so when you go back into them, you bring them, here's what you asked for, but I really thought about this, and I think a better way, more effective way may be a way that's, let's say, digital, that you may not be as comfortable with or understand, but let me talk to you about why I think it would work better. And if you get a rejection, don't worry about it. Just, the next time, just keep coming back to the person that gives you a task with a better idea. And what you're learning is you have to sell your ideas. And many marketing people go in and expect, if I show a pretty picture, people go, oh, wow, how creative, but they're looking for thinking today about what is it going to take to make this customer pay attention to us. And so it's about that idea of take whatever position you are today, you can improve it. Now, after so much time, if you don't make any progress, you're probably at the wrong company. The leader doesn't want to hear it. The leader is stuck in the past and status quo, and you need to make a decision. Do you just stop torturing yourself and do what you're told, or do you, maybe it's time to move on to another company that will appreciate what you offer. So that's my recommendation.
Well, it certainly touched a personal note there because the whole, ask for forgiveness later. I wouldn't be here today had I asked for permission to do any of this podcasting stuff from the get-go. So,
right.
But enough about me, Allison. I want to hear what your parting actionable advice is.
My parting actionable advice is do what scares you. The reason that I say that, I mean, I think it's obvious, but I have had personally experienced more growth by doing the shit that scares me the most and actually wading through it and learning and becoming unafraid of it. And so I think that goes along with what Mark was talking about, because if you don't wait for a light to appear at the end of the tunnel, stroll down there and light the bloody thing yourself. And I can't remember the person that said that, but I just love that. So, and it goes with, don't ask for permission, but put yourself out there. If you, one of my favorite moments ever in 30 years with a leader, a manufacturing leader, we're sitting there, we're talking about marketing, we're talking about all the tactics because we'd already done all the foundational thinking work. Thank you, Mark. And so he leaned forward and he whispered and he said, I really don't understand all this. It's confusing. And I looked at him and I said, thank you for saying that. Thank you for, again, being vulnerable. So that couldn't have been easy for him, but because he did something really simple that probably scared him, admit that you're afraid, it opened up conversations for us to, for me to educate him in a really kind way and non-threatening, and our work together was better because of it. So I think, do what scares you.
Excellent advice. We're closing in on the top of the hour, so I'm going to have to change the question slightly to give the best piece of advice you can give in leading in the new normal in 1 minute. So Ben, I'm going to have you lead us off on that one.
It's really simple. It's embrace mistakes. Don't be afraid to make mistakes, and don't be afraid to have the team below you make mistakes. Learn from it all. Embrace it all, celebrate it all. Light bulbs were made because 1,000 mistakes happened, and we have light because of it. So be able to embrace mistakes and learn from them.
Awesome. Ray, what is your best piece of 1 minute actionable advice?
Speaking to the CEO, president, division VP, whatever it happens to be, because change is what this conversation is about, and everybody's going to look to what's being supported. Be honest about the challenges that you're confronting. Be confident in the ability of the team to see it through to a conclusion, and be humble enough to ask for ideas, and quiet enough in the back of the room. Be the last one to speak in a meeting where others are providing ideas.
That was tight. That was a lot in a very short period of time. All right, so we got our closer, Mark Roberts. What's something people can do to lead in the new normal?
In the new normal, we're going to have leaders emerge, and we're going to have people that are really going to struggle and probably either sell their business or just go under. And I think it was in the last episode I shared that I had a coffee mug at one of the companies I worked, and it said, "Your opinion, although interesting, is irrelevant." The most important opinion today is the opinion of your customers. You take the time to get out there, understand what they're dealing with, understand the business of their business, and build your company and your structure and processes around serving them, you're going to be one of the leaders that come out of this strong.
Awesome. Way to put a bow on it. And thank you to everyone again that's been listening. And Mark, Ray, Allison, Ben, this has been a lot of fun the past month. So thank you very much. And that is it for our 4-part Game Changers mini-series. Thank you, everyone, for coming out.